Let's talk general.
All right, let's
And
move
let's
on
talk-
to the general.
And because we talked about it on our most recent episode of the podcast, Bloomberg announcing that he might announce, right? Like
It's
it's
a
still
great announcement.
we are. This is going to come out a couple days after we talk, so I guess he could technically announce in the next 3 days.
I think if
He has to announce soon.
if I garnered what I got from the Times in announced me yesterday, they sent out like a push notification on my smartphone, and it was like Bloomberg is basically like has an exploratory committee now actively in motion to see if a win is possible.
Well, let's just assume then that he's going to announce. And what do you think that means for the general election?
I think if he's pulling that card now, he's anticipating Hillary Clinton not getting the nomination and him running against Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. To which I think Bernie Sanders has correctly said that he will win, because then Bernie Sanders is running against
Two
two
Republicans.
billionaires. Well, two
Yeah.
billionaires who have been Republicans and Democrats and independents in their political lifetimes. So two New York billionaires. And Bernie Sanders will be representing the non-billionaire vote, and he will be a shoo-in.
And there are more non-billionaires than billionaires.
exactly.
How funny will
Even
it
though
be?
they all share the same amount of wealth.
So you think that Bernie Sanders will be the Democratic nominee?
I do. I think that we're heading in that
Really?
direction for sure. Hillary Clinton is so unlikable,
Yeah.
just as she was in 2008, and she is not what true progressives on the Democrat side want. That's why they went for Obama in 2008. She voted for the Iraq War. She is a hawkish candidate. She's the only person running for president who voted for the Iraq War. She definitely takes campaign contributions from Wall Street. She's more than any other Democrat, certainly. And I'd say the only other person on the Republican side that gets much Wall Street money would be Jeb Bush, who's got $100 million in a super PAC from Wall Street, and then Ted Cruz, because his wife works
But
for
you
Goldman
you don't think Hillary can pull the old commander in chief? I've been Secretary of State card. I've
She's
been
been
a
trying,
senator.
and people are like, you know what? You were Secretary of State, and you didn't do a good job. People are tired of the establishment's choices on war, civil liberties, and a guy like Bernie Sanders, who is, been very principled in his votes.
Well, I was going to say, isn't that the irony of this one in this general election? Say it's Sanders v. Bloomberg or Trump, that you could actually say, like, for once, the Democrats not the flip-flopper. 40 years of the exact same rhetoric versus, Trump and Bloomberg, who have literally switched parties,
Yeah, no, I think there'll be a strong stance for Bernie.
Yeah.
And even that's what people are getting now. That's what now that Sanders is actually competitive, the Clinton campaign's lashing out at him and things like that. They're doing their usual. That's what they did to Obama in 2008 too. Is like when Obama got in a striking distance of Clinton, she immediately started lashing out, and that's when they created those nasty whisper campaigns of, hey, Hillary, is Barack a Christian? She's like, well, I don't know. He says he's a Christian. It's like that's what she said. And Bill Clinton waved off Obama's win of the South Carolina primary as it didn't matter because Jesse Jackson won South Carolina '88. Come on, y'all. He just waved it off.
So you think that eventually it's going to be like, is Bernie Sanders a Jew? I don't know. He seems kind of Jewy. I don't know.
It's like, he is a Jew.
I've been saying I'm a Jew.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a Jewish president?
No, Bernie Sanders would be the first one.
Wow.
Yeah, he is the son of a Holocaust survivor.
Now, let me ask you that. Are you... Because I think that some might write off your opinion as saying that you're... And don't get me wrong, I like Bernie Sanders a lot. But, that you're a Bernie supporter, and that's why you're on this podcast saying this stuff.
I would say I'm an anti-establishment supporter. So I am equally for Donald Trump, although that's not popular to say at all, as a Republican candidate, because he is the most anti-establishment Republican candidate that you have over there. Donald Trump's a fun candidate to root for on the Republican side, because he's going to break the Republican Party no matter what. If they give him the nomination, the people who are in charge of the Republican Party are giving him the keys and just they're letting him take the party.
Or do you think they're backing Bloomberg?
If they don't give it to him, if they don't give it to him, they will be destroying their own party, because he'll take that base of people with him.
Do you think
he'll start his own thing?
Do you think we're... Well, actually, it was Trump did say that if he didn't win the nomination, he would not run as an independent. He said that.
But
he's
allowed
also
to lie.
But he's
I
also
thought he said that he would run as an independent.
he did it first,
signed
and then
something.
and he signed a pledge
but the
saying that he
pledge
would.
is meaningless.
It's not
Well,
binding.
right.
And that's what Trump keeps saying. He's like, if I'm not treated fairly, you
Yeah.
know, which is a fair statement. In fact, I wish Bernie had done the same thing, really.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a smart, it's like, if you don't treat me fairly, I am leaving, and I'm taking my base with me,
Yeah.
and that will make you lose.
Right.
Trump knows that.
Yeah.
Bernie should know that. But I think Bernie...
Is a nice guy.
Well,
at
Bernie,
heart.
I think, knows he's probably going to win the nomination.
I mean, he's been trending upward at such a
Huge.
pace.
Huge.
See, like when he first started, I was like, "There's no way someone with that radical of ideas would ever get the nomination."
But you know what's
Never-
funny? When Trump started running, I was like, there is no
Well, that
way
also
someone
too,
with
yeah,
that radical
that.
So, yeah,
ideas.
that's why Bernie and Trump are the most exciting political candidates of the 2016 election.
Yeah.
So do you say that you like Trump for the
His
fact that
anti-establishment, because he's not what the Republican handlers, with the
But what do you-
Republican ruling class.
if he
wanted
were to
at
win
all.
president, though, what do you think that would look
Oh
like?
God, I don't know. I don't know what would happen.
Do you
But
think
I
that's
will-
So
They s-
your
do you-
ideal thing is that he wins the nom,
yeah,
but then doesn't become president.
right. Then Bernie wins, because that's what would happen. They've already done that polling.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up, and it seems like I've started to hear more rumblings of it last week. But I kind of mostly follow this early on, just the poll numbers instead of like actual news pieces, unless you write them, buddy. But yeah, like something I feel that's talked about not a lot. I've heard a little bit of it is that he is polling ahead of Trump, whereas
Yeah.
Hillary is not.
But
Right.
see,
Hillary
And to
Trump,
me, that's the end game, right? Is to win the presidency.
Right.
So if you're a Democrat, you should want the person that wins.
and that's why Hillary is, again, in addition to the fact that, you know, her email scandal is actually like getting kind of serious. The FBI will probably press charges against her, or the Attorney General of the United States will ask the FBI not to, which will then create a big old Watergate style
right.
rebellion within the Department of Justice, which is going to be bad for the Democrats no matter what. So the safe thing for Democrats to do would be to say, hey, Hillary, you know, you won.
Got to take your lumps.
Yeah, you won the Arkansas primary. Congratulations. And the New York primary. But we're going to need those delegates to go to Bernie because they win with Bernie.
And
Well-
so do you think, but someone might take asunder Hillary using the email scandal? Like it's going to be used against her.
Yeah, it would in a general for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what's crazy? And I heard this on NPR, not even like a Fox News, but something I didn't know because they didn't really make a big deal out of it. Apparently, people have done similar things email-wise to what Hillary did and went to jail.
Yes.
So it's not as minor as they've been
It's
making
not
it.
as minor. No. Well, the only people who've been making it seem minor is the
Is her.
Clinton
Yeah.
campaign.
Yeah.
And then
And the Sanders campaign.
oh, and the Democrats. They
I
are
think this
trying
whole
to-
Sanders thing, though, was just like him being like, "Look,
I don't want to talk about it. I
Right.
want to talk about the issues.
yeah, exactly."
Yeah. Which
I-
is a
I
smart
act-
stance, kind
Right.
of.
I
but-
actually don't think Sanders is like. I think he's genuinely trying to be a sincere, nice person. With
yeah,
that
well, he's trying to
move.
be an honest politician.
Yeah, he's trying
It's
to be an
just
honest
like,
politician.
here are my proposals. Here's what I
Can-
think is the true problem.
Right.
And the other great thing about him that he kept hammering at in that last debate, which was
Mhm.
really the first contentious one between him and Clinton, was he was actually saying you need to look at who pays for the politician. He's
Yeah.
like, I am being funded by 2.5 million donations, small donations. The average donation to Bernie Sanders is $27.
Yeah.
And
That's
he's
so
like,
crazy.
and Hillary Clinton has gotten this much money from Goldman Sachs, this much money from Citibank, this much money from J.P. Morgan. She is the Wall Street candidate, and it's 100% true. And it's a great issue to hammer, because that's been his whole thing all along. It's like everything, all the issues you sit around and talk about is meaningless if the politicians you elect are controlled by special interests.
Yeah.
I really believe, like, if Bernie Sanders were to win presidency, Golak, this might be bad for the podcast because it could crumble, like, the idea that it's rigged.
yeah.
Yeah.
That because
Oh
that
no,
big
our
money is what
podcast.
buys
Well, that's the
everything.
interesting thing. I mean, that's what's happened now in Canada with Justin Trudeau
Yeah.
getting elected prime minister. It's happened now in England with Jeremy Corbyn getting elected the Labour Party leader.
But let's.
I
Can
don't
we
know.
explore
Can you
this?
explain what that means? Because I don't know what
I'm
that
just trying
means.
to say that.
But
that-
it sounds interesting.
Yeah, Canada, England, and politics are getting more progressive. So, I mean, Mike's right in that. Yeah, we always think it's rigged, but what's happening right now is that actual progressive politicians who are being funded by grassroots movements and middle class movements are actually winning positions of power, and that's the way it's supposed to work, you know.
Right.
And that's where it used to work in countries where we actually took democracy in the 50s and the 60s. They'd get these democratically elected leaders, and then the CIA would assassinate them or throw them out. But that is what happens when everyone votes.
So let's explore that, because like one of the arguments that I'm sure the Clinton campaign will unravel, or anyone would, is that like, and I do worry about this as someone who supports Bernie Sanders. I worry about just complete and utter partisan gridlock if you get Bernie Sanders in the White House and then you've got a Republican control
a lot of
Congress.
people have brought that up to me.
I mean,
well.
I just feel like the country would grind to a halt.
Well,
you know? I hope I'm wrong.
Well, here's the interesting thing, because a lot of people point that out to me. They're like, even if Bernie got elected, how would he get any of his agenda done? Most of his, and even the Clinton campaign saying this, like most of his bills are dead on arrival to Congress.
Right.
You know, his agenda is unrealistic. Nothing will get done. Think of the gridlock Obama faced.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you're trying to get an even more Obama in there.
Yeah,
Jewish Obama. A Jewish Obama.
Yeah, or like a real Obama.
Yeah, right. Or what everyone wanted
campaign
Obama to be.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Campaign Obama.
Campaign Obama. Yeah. Senator Obama. That's who we wanted all along. So it's certainly a valid point, but here's the reality of it. If we're looking at an actual Trump v. Sanders v. Bloomberg presidential candidates, I think Trump will be so dividing that the Democrats will not only show up to vote against Trump and for Sanders, they will also vote in
every
Congress. Democrats into Congress.
So you could get a Democratic president
which
and
is
House.
what Obama had as well in 2008. Obama had a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate, so that's when they rammed Obamacare and many other things as they could through. That's what in theory Sanders could do. But then that would turn Congress back to Republican by
again.
2018.
Right.
Then the question becomes. So the question is, what can he get done in
2 years?
Or, at the end of the day, Bernie also supports a lot of things. He's an independent, so he supported Rand Paul's audit the Fed.
Right.
Bernie does work with Republicans on civil liberties and different issues. So it's also like maybe a guy like Bernie can just be like, okay, Republicans, what can we get done?
But I also feel like the Bernie Sanders would use the White House as it should be, as like a pulpit for these concerns, and he's said like on his campaign trail, like when people raise this, like, and this probably better than I do, but he said like, I'm going to be actively calling people out, like, oh, what, you don't want your constituents to have a proper education or health care or
well, that's what I was thinking.
Because he comes from a legitimate standpoint where it's just like, this is who donated to your campaign. So are you being a legislator for your district or for the people who donated to your campaign? Yeah. That's I think what he's.
Well, and is that the thing that helps Bernie on just like a visceral level? Because as many facts as you throw at 80% of the populace, they're not going to respond to it. They're just going to respond to their feelings.
It is a good way to put it, because Bernie's always like, when 1% of the population is paying 0.21% of the taxes.
Yeah.
And
But don't you think that he's less hateable, so that would also help him if he was president? Like, it's just a lot easier for people that are Republican to be like, Obama.
Yeah.
He's a Muslim.
Smooth talker, but
right. So I feel like
speech,
Bernie is just not that hateable. Like even if you disagree with his policies, I feel like he would get less visceral
he wears
pushback.
his policies on his sleeve.
Yeah, I feel like
see, my dad is a hardcore conservative, and I've talked to him. He's like, I don't agree with Bernie Sanders, but I respect Bernie Sanders because he says what he believes.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, like that's a good point, because he is staunch conservative, but if he can respect the candidate,
and that's why I feel like what Irvine said,
yeah.
that if he were to try to work with Republicans, I feel like the base even would be like, all right, he's doing some stuff. I don't like him, but he's doing some stuff. We'll let him do his stuff.
Well, and there's been like Republican leaders of caucuses and things like that who have said, or at least political PACs and stuff. They're like, I cannot, in good conscience, vote for Trump. Like they're just
yeah,
like,
there was just a National Review article that came out.
Yeah, the National Review. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they're very
issue.
against Trump.
Like top conservatives are against him.
This opens up a big can of worms on the Republican side, and that's the Trump phenomenon. You either give it to him and you keep his base as part of the Republican Party, but you're also giving his base the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you don't give it to him, then he takes that base with him, and then they can't win.
That's a very interesting way. Like I never thought of it that way. That could be like
they can't win with just his base. But
I
they
think
can't win without his.
I
base.
think they're so butt fucked that their best choice is to let Ted Cruz be the vice president, let him get elected, and then assassinate him.
Right. And I wouldn't put that past Ted Cruz. I do think he's an evil psychopath.
Because that's the only way they
Underneath
could
that
get a
whole thing.
non-Trump in the White House.
Mhm.
Because I think he's the only one that has a chance to win.
Yeah.
The general.
I know. I think you're.
But like
correct.
you said, he would be horrible for the party.
Yes.
So I think they try to just kind of puppet someone in there,
Mm-hmm.
get him knocked off.
I mean, Trump is 70 years old.
Yeah.
In the same way.
It is- that is
Which, by
crazy.
the way, Trump for 70, he looks great.
It don't look
His
bad. I
doctor
did not
said
know
he
he
was
was
in tip-top
70.
shape.
Yeah.
The doctor
Billionaire,
said he was in tip-top
the
shape.
Bernie
dollars
Sanders is
helped.
what,
Yeah.
72,
74.
74?
And
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton is either 68 or 69.
Going back to the Hillary thing, though, I literally when she started gearing up her election, I was like, you know what? I'm probably gonna end up having to vote for Hillary. She's clearly the most qualified. And then, because I had this idea of her jet setting around the world as a Secretary of State, I'm like, she's a senator, she's a Secretary of State. And then, and I'm not joking, and then she opened her mouth. And then I saw her trying to be
that's
folksy.
Sexist. That's sexist.
No.
You are correct. She's
I'm
very
speaking about
unlikable
her as an individual.
As an individual, yeah.
And it was just I've never been turned off so fast.
Right, there's something very
You know?
false and rehearsed about her.
Right.
Because, I know, I've seen the clip of her, literally walking around the Iowa State Fair, like they're all supposed to do last summer. She's eating a pork chop on a stick, and she takes a bite and that's good. And it's just, right there.
Well,
you
what's
know?
the-
She is not telling the
I mean, the
truth.
most
That
famous-
pork chop is not good.
Well, the most famous clip, right, is I Ain't No Ways Tired. Like when
What?
she was down in the South.
Oh,
Or no, it was like the
yeah.
Black Caucus or the South Black Caucus.
Yeah.
She was somewhere in South and
She
maybe
tried to
black.
use a
Yeah,
kind of like
she-
a slavery colloquialism.
Yeah, she
Oh,
came out.
yeah.
You don't remember that?
I did not see that.
And she
but
was
I
just
gotta
like,
retweet
I
it.
ain't no ways tired. Like kind of basically put on like a
Yeah.
faux Southern
Yeah,
accent.
she was basically like the frog from the WB.
Yeah. And it just came across as like very pandering.
She one
To
ti-
me, that's kind of does cement her.
in the last election versus Obama, I'll never forget that they were usual stuff. She's not likable and stuff. So for one interview on a Sunday morning, every time they asked her a question, it didn't matter what it was, she would laugh. So they'd be like, "Please justify your vote for the war in Iraq," and she'd be like, "Well," it was so someone put a super cut of it on YouTube, and it
Of
was
her just laughing?
of her
Yeah.
just being like, but getting asked a serious question, talk about abortion, well,
Right.
Yeah.
I think just speaking to her character though, her marriage is obviously a sham.
Yeah.
It's just the power.
Right.
relation.
So
There's
just
also
that-
there's also a book out that apparently details how the Clintons as a couple have used her position as Secretary of State to kind of ensure all these giant speaking gigs
Oh,
for
yeah.
Bill and
Yeah.
for the Clinton Foundation and all that stuff.
Clinton Cash is what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Clintons have this thing called the Clinton Foundation, which is it's just a money pit basically, and pay to play is a serious
CGI.
crime. Yeah, so it's like a government from a foreign country could basically make a huge donation to the Clinton Foundation
Mhm.
because you're allowed. That's its idea.
'Cause it's like a
supposed to be
private-
the global Clinton initiative.
Global
Yeah,
Initiative.
yeah, that's what.
Yeah, Clinton
CGI.
Global, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also known as the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah.
And so you just basically any other country could give money to it because they're allowed, and then because she was Secretary of State, all of
Yeah.
a sudden they get a bunch of favors. They get a bunch of new tractors.
But you know,
or-
though,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna knock him for that. If I was president of the United States,
No, but that's illegal.
I'd charge.
That's illegal.
I would charge $250,000 for speaking fees.
Wait,
That's
so
But
legal
no, it's
to
not just that.
charge-
But she was using her actual position as
But that's the
Secretary of
difference.
State.
Oh,
the
right,
speaking
right.
fees is actually
Sure.
she gets and Bernie keeps hammering her on this, and,
Mhm.
is that she got paid $600,000 in 1 year to speak to Goldman Sachs 3 times or something.
Yeah.
like
Now
that.
what
So
could
you're
she
saying that
possibly
it's
be
a-
talking about in that?
Sorry.
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually just also recently saw a clip of someone at one of her rallies, and they videotaped her. It was like, "Hey, will you release your transcripts of your speeches to Goldman Sachs?"
Mhm.
And she did the laugh thing.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Of course not. No fucking way.
No, she
What
didn't-
is
she didn't even
I'll
yeah,
kill you.
answer. She just laughed and then turned.
Um,
I mean, the woman's a monster.
there now, so like again, like, and this is like as someone who admitted earlier on this podcast, like I was probably planning to vote for like Hillary before I was aware Sanders was running.
Yeah, same here. I was
And,
like,
like,
well, it's gonna be Hillary versus Bush,
But-
and
But did you hear, like, this is one of the things that I will never let that campaign forget. In this cycle, they did a press announcement because Sanders was like Mr. Improviser. He was Mr. like, oh, screw it, like I'm gonna just go, shake this hand, or like he was Mr. Unpredictable. That's what they called it. So the Hillary Clinton campaign issued a press. No, he was spontaneous. Sorry, that's the word.
Okay.
Now I'm about to land this. The Hillary Clinton campaign
A lot of
issued
circling.
a press release saying that Hillary was planning to be more spontaneous.
oh, that's right, that was classic.
Could you get
a
any
classic
more
move.
like
planning to
oh
be more
my
spontaneous.
God.
It's
Yeah,
like a
it's
planning
terrific.
to be
yeah.
more spontaneous?
It's like an Onion article.
They released
Yeah.
a press release saying that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my boss.
She signed up for classes at IO.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, she's just a very unlikable person, and that's why the DNC probably scheduled all their debates for Fridays and Saturdays
Yeah.
and Sundays.
Yeah, I
and-
see you live tweeting the debates and stuff, and that's one of your biggest knocks is that
Yeah,
it
they
seems
just-
like they're scheduling them so no one watches them.
So no, because they don't want people to watch them. They don't want people to see Sanders' ideas, and they don't want people to see how unlikable Hillary Clinton is. But I think that's working in Sanders' favor now.
Do you
honestly.
think it's similar to 2008 in terms of like she just assumed, like she just kind of
Yeah,
like slow
I think
played
she
it, like
went
she
in
just
with-
assumed she'd be the
I
candidate,
think everybody.
and then
I
this,
assumed she would be the
We
candidate.
Right.
all assumed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all
and
assumed.
then just this kind of young, not necessarily young with Bernie, but
This young whippersnapper,
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders.
but it's the same way, just like Obama's kind of this guy where like, he seems interesting, but
Yeah.
like she's got it, and then
Yeah.
she just kind of played it lazy, kind of.
But we also all assumed that Trump's campaign was going to be a joke and a wash, and he'd be out by now.
I think he
Yeah.
assumed that too.
Yeah.
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 But don't you remember, like I remember, and I think I saw it on the Daily Show, and they were ripping it, rightfully so, that like when Bernie announced, he looked like he was just in like a church banquet hall, like it was just this like plain room. He was just like, I'm doing president, and then just walked off. Like
no,
there was,
he had a big, beautiful announcement in front of Lake Champlain in Burlington, Vermont.
oh, did he? Maybe
Yeah,
I'm
it was
thinking
a
of
big,
something different.
big old.
Yeah, he's got to roll it out. He was,
Yeah, he
but that's
rolled
the
it out
thing that
pretty
I
well.
like about Bernie is like he didn't. This isn't like some sort of. It's not just a message campaign. It's like he's genuinely is like.
And
no,
it
I think I
also
can
is
win
not like a
this."
vanity campaign.
Yeah, no.
Right. Yeah, he's always said this campaign is not about me. This is about ideas. This is what people want for this party and for this country, and et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I think I would like to wrap on this.
Mhm.
Unless you guys have other points, I don't have to be the one who raps. But I think we covered most of the stuff, except I'd like to hear mostly Democrat, but I guess you could do both. What do you think about VPs?
Oh, I think the sure choice
Good
for
question.
for the Democrats to especially ensure that they win the election after Hillary Clinton gets indicted and then she's gonna drop out, and Bernie gets the nomination, and then Bloomberg says, "Well, now I have to get in," and then Trump wins the nomination.
Right.
Once it's Sanders versus Bloomberg versus Trump, the best thing the Democrats can do to take the election would be a Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren
Yeah.
ticket.
That's the one that's been
Hands
getting the
down,
most
you get
heat.
your woman in there, a woman who actually deserves it. not
Right.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton.
It's a beautiful ticket.
And
That's
it's a beautiful
great ticket.
They're both on the same page on all the issues.
Mhm.
That would
and
be
they're-
like a monster.
Then you also ensure,
Well, and then every Democrat in the country goes rabid for that ticket.
yeah, and that's where
You
you
know.
get the mass turnout, and you vote out the Republicans in Congress who
Mhm.
are not, the Republicans. Al Franken always had a funny line where he's like, Republicans always talk about how government doesn't work and government doesn't work, and then they get elected to go to D.C. and then prove that government doesn't work. It's just like, of course, damn it,
Yeah.
So, I think that would be the sure way. Ted Cruz, I think, may have just cost himself the VP spot. Nikki Haley on the Republicans.
Why
No.
did Ted Cruz?
I'd
Oh.
say
the
especially
New
if
York,
Trump
the
is
New York
nominee.
values and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
Like
New
you
York
just went too
values.
hard.
Yeah, I think he went too hard.
Yeah.
You can tell that Donald Trump was always kind of thinking maybe Ted Cruz.
Mhm.
I was thinking a Latino, but I think now at this point,
What about Trump Rubio?
I don't think that would happen. I think Rubio.
You don't
What
think
about like
Rubio?
Rand Paul?
But you don't think that
They don't like Rand Paul.
you don't think that Trump would, in a way to backtrack with Hispanics,
I
would
think
try and
Nikki
bring Rubio
Haley
in?
would be
I
Yeah.
don't
More
know
solid
who that
choice.
is
She's
at
the
all.
governor,
Governor
the
of
female
South
She's the
governor
one
of
that
South
came
Carolina.
out. Yeah, she's been very quiet, but recently has gotten some heat, I think.
Oh, she's supposed to be like the new Sarah Palin, right?
You can say that.
No.
She made
Yeah.
the.
Maybe not as dumb. Maybe that's too much of a slur at this point in politics. I just meant more that they're like, oh, she's pretty and she's young and like young politically, and like she could maybe be like a
Right,
kind of like
she's
a
like
boots.
43.
Yeah.
So wait, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Who would be Trump's VP?
That Nikki Haley, I think.
You think
is,
Nikki
is
Haley?
someone who he's looking at now because she's a woman. She's
Female.
also successful and respected.
Didn't she come out and like blast Trump though?
No, she just said we shouldn't be led by angry rhetoric.
She
And Trump had a great response to it where he was like, if she's talking about me, she's absolutely right. I am angry. That's why I'm here. So it was like a good spin on his part. And then
Yeah.
when she was asked, are you talking about Trump? She's like, there's a lot of passion.
Mm-hmm.
So they never really had like a
Hmm.
falling out.
did she do the response to the State of the Union? Okay,
as
that's
well,
how I know
which
her.
is usually
Yeah.
what happens when the establishment tries to roll someone else out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And a lot of people flopped. Marco Rubio flopped,
Flopped.
when you got the
The
drinking
water.
Drinking water.
That was
Bobby
one of the
Jindal.
funniest
Bobby
clips.
Jindal was inept.
Yeah.
He was talking
Mitch
about
Daniels
Katrina
was
and how the
Indiana
government is
governor.
inept. You know.
Yeah, a lot of them just bomb usually, but
Mhm.
she actually did pretty well. Even I watched it, and I was like, all right,
Yeah.
that wasn't as bad as previous.
So
years.
let's just say though, like Hillary proves to like somehow rise
She
to
will
the
lose.
occasion. No. Let's
She
say she
will
wins.
lose.
Who would she pick as a VP?
Well, I'm saying if she beat out Bernie Sanders for the nomination, she would lose. Trump would win.
Oh, but
Say
who
hello
would
to
she pick
Donald
as
So
a
it doesn't
VP
even
then?
matter who she picked as VP.
Right.
Yeah.
Except she
Do you
probably.
think she would court?
all the reports for her say Julian Castro, former mayor of San Antonio, who's been bumped up to
Oh,
the
okay, I know
he's
that
the,
dude.
Male, Hispanic,
yeah,
Texas.
exactly. But he
Yeah.
also they bumped him up to the head job at the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So he's the head of HUD,
Mhm.
and he's very popular in DC circles.
What about any
And he's young and he's Latino, yeah.
Yeah.
any
And
Bloomberg?
maybe gay. Who
Any-
knows?
Oh, that would be
There
good.
you go.
We'll find
Any
out.
Bloomberg picks? I mean, it's pretty
For
early,
his
but
VP?
yeah.
Oh my God.
Any just outsides? Do you think he would pick a Republican or a Democrat
I
or?
wonder. I don't know. I have
Mhm.
no idea what Bloomberg. Because again, he just announced.
Yeah.
This
I
weekend.
feel like Bloomberg would be like, "Don't need a VP.
Yeah, like, I'll just do it.
Yeah.
on
I'm
my
just
own.
doing it alone." Like,
It's a celebration.
My
I never-
VP is a small soda.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Under 16 ounces is my
Big gulps
VP.
for nobody.
Campaign
Campaign slogan.